welcome everyone to the Devy to Dynasty YouTube channel. I am Brandon Lejeune, your host of the Devy Deep Dive podcast and creator of the Devy Dashboard. I'm here with one of my fellow dashboard content creators, Cory Pereira. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, man. We are expecting a crazy snowstorm here in Winnipeg, so that's the fun thing of living in Canada right now. But I'm just hoping that I keep my power and we're good to go here.
Oh, well, that's nice. I was in Philadelphia today. It was 68 and quite lovely. So very sunny, so,
Must
but
be
in any
nice.
case, yeah, soon, right? Up there in Canada. Hey, man, this is our second year doing this show. We did our buys and sell shows and sleeper shows. So we're excited. We are approaching Devy season right now. The NFL draft is a couple weeks away. We'll be all into that as well, doing the indoor rookie drafts. But I'm ready to talk some Devy, Cory. So, we challenged ourselves to come up with 3 buys. So before we get started, I just want to promote, you'll see my hat here, the Devy Summit. It's a big event that I'm hosting along with Campus to Canton and Matt Hicks for the, it's going to be on May 22nd. So, feel free to save that date, but it's going to be a great event on this YouTube channel. So be sure to tune in for that. But, I think the big question, Cory, is like, what's a buy, right? What is a buy when we play Dynasty, when we play Devy? Everyone wants to know kind of like what a buy is. And I think it's very simple. Kind of, it's like an undervalued asset, right? So we're going to talk about some players here that we feel, Devy is a value game, right? I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to try and get out from under people that you may think are overvalued and maybe get in on somebody who might be, early to the party and get out there and on a player before it becomes mainstream and it gets onto Twitter and everyone jumps on board, right? So that's kind of what our show is here today. So Cory, I'm going to let you kick us off with your first buy heading into this fall season. So I'm super excited. I don't, we don't know whose the other names are. So hopefully we don't have any guys that overlap. I don't think so, but all right. So who's your first name?
Yeah, so I'm going to head over to Oregon and talk about a guy by the name of Byron Cardwell, the running back there. He was a freshman last year, 4-star prospect, highly touted. Good guy with good size, 6 foot, 210, so you love to see that. And, he was kind of an afterthought after 3 weeks of the season last year. Really only saw 9 carries through week 6 last year. But then an injury to C.J. Verdell, who was a starter of the Oregon Ducks at the time, pretty much thrust him into a bigger role. He became the second back behind Travis Dye, who we all know had a great year for the Ducks. He led all running backs in the Pac-12 in scrimmage yards. So you like to see that production there, but he would end up, Byron would end up seeing 52 more carries operating as the number 2 back behind him. He averaged 7.2 yards per carry over those 52 carries. He ended up finishing with 417 yards rushing. Not crazy production, but still something you like to see. You like to see that he got that bigger role heading down the stretch of the season there, and he was able to maintain it. His best 3-game stretch actually came when he ran 32 times for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. He earned Pac-12 Freshman of the Week honors in the middle of there, which was nice to see. He was a big play threat. 52% of his yards actually came on breakaway runs. 13% of his 61 attempts resulted in 15 or more yards, which means he was breaking away yards at an alarming rate. Both of which actually led his backfield. So even these guys who were pretty productive, like CJ and Travis Dye, he was actually doing better than them. But heading into 2022 now, we see that Verdell is off to the NFL. Travis Dye actually transferred over to USC. So they're both gone. Cardwell is pretty much in line to climb to the top of the depth chart. His backfield teammate, Seven McGee, also switched over to wide receiver. So essentially, with all these guys leaving now, you're looking at about 75% of the production gone from last year. They bring in some guys like a pretty highly touted recruit in Jordan James. They're bringing a transfer as well. That kind of has some ties to the running back coach. So we'll see how some things break out. But the reports have been really good about Cardwell right now. He's got a clear opportunity to seize a starting role. They have a little bit of a regime change there, and it's going to be tough to see him repeat that same production that Dye had, because they really gave the main guy a lot of touches. But he's got the opportunity, and sometimes that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, I think so in the running back. In fact, I'm looking at a mock draft here that I'm involved in right now, Devy mock. He went in the beginning of the 7th round in a C2C startup mock, right? So, I mean, he's got some value there. There's people that, like you said, opportunity knocks. I think we'll have to see what he can do. So Bo Nix will be handing the ball off to him a lot, I guess, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
Let's see Tyson. Let's see Ty Thompson, please. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, right. My first buy, I'm going to go with Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Georgia, 6'4", 190 pounds. I mean, this guy flashed last year. He was a true freshman. I mean, I love this kid's size and his ability on the field. As you guys know, I'm a film grinder. Last year, he had 29 receptions, 426 yards, 4 TDs, averaging 14.7 yards a catch. We know last year it was Bowers. He stole the show there in Georgia. Pickens is off to the NFL, but I mean, he was fourth in receiving yardage on the team. Jermaine Burton was kind of banged up last year. He's now transferred to Alabama. So kind of what Cory was saying about Cardwell's opportunity. I think Adonai Mitchell, I mean, Bowers, I think this offense is going to run through Bowers. There's no doubt about it. But I think after that, I think it is wide open. You look at the depth chart right now. You got Kyrus Jackson, Ladd McConkey, Arian, Smith and Dominic Blaylock, other guys on the team that really haven't done much of anything. So Stetson Bennett looks like he's going to be the QB again. I don't know how they take the reins from him unless Vandegrift comes in and just, really shows well. But I think, winning the national championship and he's back, I just have a feeling. So, could he hold him down a little bit? Possibly. But, Pickens got the NFL draft capital. Bowers is the Debbie Darling tight end, number 1 or 2, regardless, of whoever you talk to. So, I think there's an opportunity for another ball catcher. I mean, I know Georgia runs the ball a lot, but Adonai Mitchell, I mean, for a freshman coming up with 426 yards, 4 TDs, I mean, given that offense, the inconsistencies, I think he flashed enough. I mean, right now, I think he could be the wide receiver on the team. So in the Devy, again, in this mock, I've done 2 or 3 mocks here in the last, week or two. He's coming to be off the board between the 8th and 12th rounds in startups. I think he's kind of just a forgotten wide receiver right now. I think no one gets excited about Georgia wide receivers, and I understand it. But, if Pickens can get, day 1 draft capital, day 2 draft capital, and they can put someone on an NFL roster, I think I'm going to swing the fences here for Adonai Mitchell. I mean, he impressed me again, like watching his film. I liked what I saw. He's a vertical threat. He had some yak ability, seemed to catch the ball outside his frame. Little things that I look for in wide receivers. But I don't know. I got lots of shares of him in my startups for Devy C2C last year, just taking, SEC quality guys later in the C2C round. So I don't know. I think this time next year we could see him being a top, 6-5 round wide receiver if he shows out well. And he's young enough to do that with 2 more years left of eligibility playing in college before going to the NFL. So, Cory, who you got for your second buy?
Yeah, so I love that buy, by the way. I'm a Georgia fan, so I really hope that he does take that next step. I hope they start incorporating a little bit more of the passing game. That's what I want to see. I don't know what's going to happen with Stetson there. I do think he holds it down a little bit, but they got a lot of young guys pushing right now, so let's see what happens. But for my guy, looking at another wide receiver here heading into his sophomore year, and I'm going to head over to Notre Dame, which – their passing offense as a whole last year kind of saw a down year. That no wide receiver broke 1,000 yards. Their second highest output came from Michael Mayer, the tight end. So very, very similar to Georgia, where they kind of ran through the tight end, even though a little bit better passing. But, they also got a regime change this year, and they could change the philosophy going into 2022. And you look at, last year's bowl game and a head coach. Yeah, a head coaching change right before that game after Brian Kelly left to go to LSU. He ended up playing the most snaps he had ever seen all season. Ended up with 8 catches, 136 yards, 1 touchdown performance. So you'll have to see that. This was a guy who had 23 snaps through week 8. So it's kind of made you wonder, like, why weren't they using this guy like this the whole season, right? And then you look at Notre Dame now heading into this year, and they're going to see the departure of their leading receiver from last year, and Kevin Austin, who's rising up some boards. I know I saw on your board there you actually like him quite a bit. Mm-hmm. They're going to see a change at quarterback. They're going to be shifting to a borderline 5-star prospect in Tyler Buchner, who showed some flashes last year. Definitely going to be a step up from Jack Cohn. Hopefully they're going to be opening up the playbook a little bit. And this guy, Lorenzo, is legit savvy and has like legit athleticism. It's what you like to see. He has a 4.47 40-yard dash that he recorded as a prospect. He's physical. He runs out of the slot, so you got to be quick to run those routes out of the slot. You got to be physical, handle catches in the middle of the field. And he's got a good build to him at 6'1", 190 pounds. Like you like to see that. It's a good build. You look at Notre Dame too. They've had some success putting guys in the NFL. Over the past 6 years, their wide receivers that are entering the NFL have averaged third-round draft capital, and that includes second-round selection of Chase Claypool, first-round selection of Will Fuller. So they're not that they're getting NFL looks to look at them. And Styles has an interesting skill set. He's already began to receive rave reviews this spring. He's being talked about like the potential focal point of this offense. So this is a guy that I'm kind of looking for in those mid rounds that I could see climbing into next year.
I agree. I think he flashed big time last year, and that's kind of what you want. I mean, right? That it's when you're looking for buys in this, you kind of want to see guys that maybe emerge towards the end of the previous season and have vacated opportunity to have an increased role. So I love the pick. I think he's very physical. You know me, I love physical receivers. So
and this isn't too unlike last year when the guy I chose for my buy was the guy who had a big bowl game with UNC and Josh Downs, and we all see how that turned out. Okay, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, and your call on Charbonnet was a good one last year on our cell shows. I'm going to give you credit for that. And I know you were worried in the very beginning. When
I took flack for that one, man, on Twitter and stuff for a little bit, but it ended up the same way, I think.
Yeah, well, hold your ground, man. That's good stuff. Well, listen, I'm going back to a well on a guy that people are going to probably think I'm nuts, even picking this player, but I'm going with MARSHAWN LLOYD as a possible buy. All right, he was a high recruit, 5'9", 215 pounds. So listen, hear me out on this. The guy is freaking free. All right. I mean, right now I'm through 15 rounds in an upstart Devy mock, C2C mock, and he hasn't even been selected yet. So I'm telling you, this guy is down deep. He's been kicked to the curb. Everyone's out on him already. To give you a little bit of history, if you're new to Devy, I mean, in 2020, he tears his ACL in the spring. Broke my heart. I drafted him in almost every C2C league. I loved his high school film. 2021, he comes back. He only rushed for 228 yards. He had 1 touchdown on 64 carries, averaging over 3.8 yards a carry. Not great. He had 3 catches for 44 yards, so he flashed a little bit. But he faced a ton of stacked boxes. I mean, the passing game was so bad last year for South Carolina, so they had no vertical threat, bad offensive line. But again, if we're going to look at vacated opportunity and depth chart, right, which is what I'm looking at here, Kevin Harris and Zakondre White are both headed to the NFL. Labasa Carroll, I believe how you say his first name, and Christian Beal-Smith, both incoming transfers. Carroll from Georgia, Beal-Smith from Wake Forest. I mean, Carroll played defensive back last year for Georgia. Now he's going back to his original position, playing running back, what he played in high school. So he doesn't, he lost really 1 year of playing running back, and Beal-Smith is a 4-year, player from Wake Forest. So I don't really look at him as a threat, right? So the spring practices, everything that I'm reading is they are giving him first team reps. They are going to give him the opportunity to carry the rock this year. I'm not super impressed with the rest of the backfield. So I'm saying to myself, why not? Why not take a shot? So if you're like me and you've got shares of him, or there was a guy somebody that you like that you don't have enough shares of, I mean, this guy could be a basic throw-in to a trade if you're working the waiver wire, working the trades, before we get started this fall. But this guy, I think, could be just added into a deal, and he could be a guy. I think we're going to know very early, right? I think within a month and a half, we're going to know if this is a good call or if this call turns to shit. All right. Because it's either it's going to happen or it's not, but I like his opportunity. They're giving him an opportunity. And I mean, like I said, I just loved his high school film, and I just wonder where we would possibly be if he didn't tear his ACL and he didn't have last year he recovered. I know he had a tough recovery from it mentally more than physically. So I'm hoping that's all behind him now. He gets the rock, he gets the opportunity. So I'm going back in, I'm dipping my toes back in the well for one more time. So MARSHAWN LLOYD is my second buy.
No, and I like that buy. And I mean, you even look at guys like Zamir White, like even Nick Chubb back in the day, like Trey Sanders, who all tore their ACLs and all took like almost 2 years to come back from it and really look like themselves. So you're never gonna know with a guy like Lloyd, who a guy that I really loved as a prospect too, had amazing high school film, and that offense is going to see big uptick with Rattler coming in. He should become more efficient, hopefully, with him coming in. So hopefully it'll be better, and MARSHAWN can get his chance. So yeah, I really like that. For my third guy here, I'm gonna head over to Cincinnati. Talk about a guy in a quarterback battle right now. It's a little bit deep. He's barely even going in Devy drafts right now, at least straight Devy drafts. But I'm going to talk about Evan Prater. He's a guy who just has like a boatload of potential, right? And he's been starting off the spring right, which is what you want to see. with Desmond Ridder off to the NFL, obviously Cincinnati's looking for another quarterback to take over. Evan is 6'4", 200-pound four-star prospect. He was actually the highest recruit in program history. So, people have been waiting for this guy. They've been pretty much thinking about him as the next guy once Ridder left the NFL. Now, the only problem with that was Cincinnati saw the return of Ben Bryant, who used to be with the team before. He transferred over to, I can't remember if it was ECU, a different school, or he played a full year. But now, for some reason, they somehow talked him into coming back this year. He's an experienced guy. He's a fifth-year guy. So that's the only thing kind of clouding the situation. But there's a few reasons, in my opinion, at least, that I lean towards Prater in this competition, right? The new offensive coordinator that was there was the quarterback coach over the last 2 seasons. He sat pretty much on this staff for the last 5 years under the last OC that passed. During that time, they asked their quarterback to rush for an average of 118 times a year, with almost 500 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns per year. Like that's a lot of relying on the quarterback to run. Anybody who's watched Desmond Ridder for the last couple of years, you've seen that that's been a big part of their game. And Ben Bryant is pretty much a zero in this category. He doesn't rush the ball. And Ridder gave us glimpses of that last year. He rushed for 105 yards coming in and mop-up duties last year. He rushed for 2 touchdowns, showed off some speed, some elusiveness. He even threw for two touchdowns as well. So this was a guy who essentially who is a true dual threat in high school. This guy had 4,000 yards rushing, had another 5,000 or 6,000 more throwing the ball. So he really was that dynamic dual threat. He was doing a little bit of everything. And, like I said, the string started good for Prater. He had a fantastic spring game, which just happened this past weekend. He opened up with the first team, which is what you like to see, tossed 2 touchdowns, made a bunch of plays with his legs, and generally looked the sharper of the two between him and Ben Bryant. So I think the upside here lies with Evan. I think he has legitimate tools that the NFL could love. I think he just needs to prove himself as a passer a little more, but he may never be cheaper than he is right now.
Yeah, and that's what the part of this, the fun of this show is, right? I mean, we're giving you some guys who were maybe undervalued, and they may stay undervalued, but their stock has nowhere to go but up from here, right? Yeah. So you had talked about a Notre Dame player before. My third buy here, I'm gonna go with AUDRIC, ESTIME, running back from Notre Dame. He was a 2021 prospect. He was fourth. He was a 4-star, ranked 14th in the class. 5'11", 228. Like that size. Size matters as a running back. At least, again, this is a Devy buy, not a C2C or college fantasy football buy. So I'm always going to lean towards guys that have a bigger frame. Again, Notre Dame, they're going to be putting this year a running back. We don't know where yet in the NFL draft. He will be getting probably day 2 draft capital, maybe day 3. But nonetheless, like Cory said, Notre Dame puts guys in the NFL. All right. So last year, he only played in 2 games. He ran 7 times, 60 yards, 8.6 average. But again, this is a vacated opportunity play. I loved his high school film. He's not the most elusive guy that you saw, again, with that big frame. Man, the guy runs with power. He had some ability. He caught, probably, I think, 15 or 16 passes his junior and senior year, respectively. So he was used a little bit in high school in the passing game. So we yet to see if he has that ability at Notre Dame. But again, talking about the depth chart, talking about opportunity, Kyron Williams, as we know, is going off to the draft, and he got fed the ball a ton last year. Towards the end of the year, Chris Tyree got some play. Logan Diggs, at 6 foot, 206, he's another sophomore, got some run last year. I wasn't super impressed with what I saw with him. Chris Tyree is 5'9", 190 pounds, so he's not going to be that guy in the backfield that's going to really pound between the tackles. Logan Diggs is 206 pounds, but his team comes in as that big-bodied guy, the big physical, and I think Notre Dame likes to run the ball. They like the big boys in the middle. I think they're going to continue to run the ball. So again, I think he, has an opportunity to take a good, chunk of that backfield next year. And again, we're talking about value in a show like this, right? I mean, this guy's not even getting drafted until like after the 20th round in the last 2 C2C mocks, that happened that I've been participating in. So, I mean, this guy is like way deep. He's a player that when you're really getting to the point in your C2C drafts where you don't really even know who to take anymore, because we've all been there after round 20, unless you like live for this stuff. I mean, this might be a guy who might get some run in the spring. Again, the spring notes, spring practice reports is that, they are giving him an opportunity to feed him the ball. And I think that given his size, he has the ability to take over this backfield. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, again, this is a late flyer that you're going to take, but it might, again, thinking where are we this time next year? He could be coming out of the gate with 900 yards, 10 TDs, and all of a sudden being on the Devy landscape map that everyone else is talking about. but you know, you might have a chance to get your hands on them early if you want to. So you could actually be on your waiver wire in your supplemental drafts and your CTC supplemental drafts coming up. So be sure to check your waiver wire on Fantrax. So, hey, Cory, man, thanks again for joining me, man. I love doing these shows with you. We'll get in, we'll get out, give these all these Devy and C2C junkies out there some names to at least do your own research. And that's what we do. We want to provide these names. You go out, do your own research, check them out, see if you like what we say, and do your own research and see if you want to target some of these guys. So, hey, man, Cory, thanks, pal, for joining in.
Always a pleasure, Brandon.
I'll talk to you.